What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller from Hook'emHeadlines.com coming back at you all today with my reaction, thoughts, and kind of taking a look at what's next for Texas after some pretty abrupt news today that the Longhorns are losing freshman guard and former five-star recruit Arterio Morris to the transfer portal. We're recording this video on the night of April 10th. Just a few hours ago, it was initially reported that Terry plans to enter the transfer portal. I don't know if his name is officially surfaced in the portal yet, but it sounds like that's pretty much a sure thing that he's at least going into the portal. Just some background on this and just from what I know and sources and various reports that I've combed through the last couple of weeks, how this came to be. Terrio was not a guy that told Rodney Terry and the staff a couple of weeks ago in the post, in the early offseason player meetings that he didn't tell him that he was guaranteed to return. He was one of the guys still in question. Shane and I did a video around a week ago looking at the projected roster for next season. I put Terry at around a 70 to 75% chance to return. I was leaning to him returning to Texas, but I knew that there was a chance at least that he would end up in the portal. Here we are. But it sounds like another driving factor for him was some noise from people in his camp in and around the DFW area. He is a Dallas, Texas native, went to Dallas Kimball High School in South Dallas in the Metroplex. But it sounds like some people in his circle were kind of pushing for him to explore other options. Sounds like he kind of gave into the noise that was coming from back home. And another thing could be that just he didn't like the coaching situation. That's mostly a hypothetical. But there's always that video that comes to mind for me in the NCAA tournament. I can't remember if that was after the Penn State or the Xavier game, but after one of those games, Terrio clearly looked dejected in the locker room. The team was celebrating. It was after a win, but he was clearly not kind of feeling the energy the same way that everyone else was in the locker room. He's a guy that was originally recruited by Chris Beard to Texas, signed with Beard and the Longhorns in the 2022 class, was one of the 3 blue chip recruits, along with Rowan Brumbaugh, who also ended up in the portal on Friday and then committed to Georgetown today. And then Dylan Mitchell was the other recruit that signed in the 2022 class. Still waiting on a decision from him, but he tweeted out something today, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Maybe Terry was looking at, reunification with Chris Beard at Ole Miss. That I don't know. That would just be hypothetical. Don't want to speculate too much on that in this video. But, there could be a multitude of factors. I would say that noise in and around the DFW area definitely being one of the biggest. And then, I think if Chris Beard was still the head coach at Texas, it might be a little bit different. But, Rodney Terry taking over, new expectations being put in place. There has been some other staff changes. Texas just brought aboard Frank Haith as a new assistant. John Riley, the strength and conditioning coach, just left. So there are changes to the staff. Those are guys that, Arterio Morris had relationships with and connections with, dating back to his recruitment. So I think those two were probably the biggest driving factors. But I want to talk about, what impact this has on Texas and then, kind of what's next here. Also the impact that it has on Terrio. I think while I had a lot of hope and expectation for Terrio to return and have a huge sophomore campaign, that there was always going to be challenges to him reaching his full potential. He faced some off the court turmoil before his arrival at Texas, during his true freshman campaign. And then, he just didn't really develop a lot as the season moved along. He didn't really end the season on a high note, particularly. He played, I think it was of the final 4 games of the season, so the 4 NCAA tournament games that Texas played. He only got more than 10 minutes off the bench in one of those, and that was kind of in garbage time late in the game against Xavier. He played a big role for Texas in the Big 12 tournament when Timmy Allen was out. You had to move Serge Barry Rice into the starting 5, and then that shifted Terrio into a bigger role. But, he looked good there. He had 2 games with at least 8 points and 2 steals coming off the bench. Provided a lot of energy, but, he's making some mistakes, some key mistakes on switches, on defense. wasn't always looking super crisp with the shot selection or with his decision making off ball on offense. So, you never saw it consistently. You never saw Terrio putting all the pieces together consistently, or even really starting to on any sort of, consistent stretch of games. And so, there would have been a lot of strides he had to make heading into next season. But, if he can reach his potential elsewhere, this is a guy with NBA tools, 6'3", 190 pounds, a player that plays with a lot of energy on both ends of the floor. Good defender, good length, very good athlete, can really live above the rim, good ball handler. He's got a lot of potential. There's a reason why he was a 5-star recruit, one of the top 25 players in the nation, according to most of the major recruiting services, and I believe including the 247 Sports Composite. And so, he's a guy that still has a lot of potential, a lot left in the, a lot left in the tank to tap into. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I thought if he returned and had a big sophomore campaign, he could have played his way into becoming like at a ceiling, at least a first-round NBA draft caliber prospect. But anyway, I think for Texas, you have to, you kind of have to put some perspective on the two guard losses that you've had in the last few days. You lost Rowan Brumbaugh to the portal on Friday. And then, you have the whole Terrio situation today. And while that's a lot of talent and potential to lose in the backcourt, you're already facing a lot of roster turnover this offseason. So this obviously isn't an ideal situation to be losing to key parts of the backcourt for the future. But, Terry has made it pretty clear behind the scenes that he wants a lot of experience on the team next season. I think that's a wise move. Again, he's still going to be a first-year full-time head coach at Texas, while he's got plenty of head coaching experience under his belt, more than a decade from his time at Fresno State and UTEP. This is a big job, and he's going to have to assemble his own roster. He had Beard's roster last season, and while he found himself in a tough situation, it's a different task. It's a very tall task to have to rebuild a roster, and the portal is going to play a huge role this offseason. So, in a nutshell, I think, if Texas can add some experience, some quality guards via the portal this offseason, and make the most out of A.J. Johnson, a 5-star kid from the high school ranks that you have coming in via the 2023 recruiting class, I think ultimately you will be fine. What's next for Texas? I think this is a good bridge. First and foremost, Rodney Terry and his staff are very active in the portal. They're after a few guards right now. The first name that has stuck out is Reese Dixon-Waters, transfer from USC. He's a 6'5", 210-pound junior shooting guard. Reigning Pac-12 Sixth Man of the Year. I know when Texas has pitched to Dixon-Waters, they, specifically Terry's pitch, that they've mentioned the potential of him starting at the 2 or the 3. I would like him to more fill a sixth-man role. I think it would be ideal if he could kind of fill that role that Serge Barry Rice did last season, that kind of that bench scorer that provides a lot of offensive output and just a lot of energy, a huge spark coming off the bench. And so I still think Dixon-Waters could be a huge addition. Texas is in a really good spot with him. It seems like he's the guy that Texas is prioritizing in the portal right now. A few other guards to watch. One that I've heard a little bit about recently is Max Obmas, senior guard from Oral Roberts, 2-time Summit League Player of the Year, 3-time All-Conference Player in the Summit League as well. Guy that's averaged more than 21 points per game in each of the last 3 seasons, has shot around 44% from the field, around 38% from deep in his career. He's a really good guard. I think he's the type of guy that could lead this Texas team at the point guard position, brings a lot of experience to the table. If he came to the 40 acres, he'd be pretty close to home. He's a native of Rockwell, Texas, went to Dallas Jesuit High School. So, I think that the proximity to home could be a pitch there. A couple other names that I've heard about lately, Quincy Olivari, the Rice transfer, 2-time All-Conference USA guard. I think he would be more of a combo guard. He's not necessarily a pure floor general, but again, averaged around 19 points per game last season, 6 rebounds, shot around 37% from 3. I believe he had 95 made threes last season, which was top 3 in the Conference USA. Quality player. He made the Texas made the top 4, so that's another name to watch. Then at least among guards, I heard a little bit about Texas being connected to Caleb Love earlier this offseason, but that kind of fizzled out here recently, which I'm happy about. I don't think Caleb Love would be necessarily what Texas needs right now. I think kind of those 2 or 3 names that I mentioned are going to be the biggest ones to watch. Dixon Waters, I think, would be the logical first portal addition of the offseason for Texas. But, I think Texas needs experience. They need experience. They need some quality guard depth. You're losing 2 huge pieces in Marcus Carr and Serge Barry Rice. You could also potentially be losing Tyrese Hunter. He declared for the NBA draft while maintaining his collegiate eligibility. He's kind of looked at it as a borderline late second round draft prospect from some of the recent reports I've seen. Some of those are a little bit outdated based on the information. I got some sources closer to the NBA draft. He'd have to have a really good combine. He'd have to really impress throughout the draft scouting process, I think, for him to get even picked in the second round. This is a really loaded draft in the 2023 class. So I think there is still a good chance that Hunter could return. But again, you've got 4 or 5 scholarship spots in the backcourt and wing rotation now that you got to fill out because you're losing multiple guys due to NBA draft, lack of eligibility, transfer portal, you name it. So there's a long way to go this offseason. There's a lot. There will continue to be a lot that happens in the transfer portal. For the Longhorns, I think the bulk of the losses are behind us because there's really only 1 or 2 more players that could possibly enter the portal for Texas. That would be potentially Dylan Dessou if he decides to maybe declare for the NBA draft and then enter the portal. I don't necessarily think that would happen. Sounds like if he does return to college, it would be to Texas for 1 more year, but no guarantees there. And then, Tyrese Hunter, while he did declare for the NBA draft, he's already entered the portal once, and he was recruited by Chris Beard. He did tell Rodney Terry and the staff that if he does come back to college, he will play for Texas, so I would trust him at his word there. Could he still enter the portal? Technically, yes, but I'm going to hold him at his word, and I would assume that he would be returning to Texas if he doesn't get drafted or doesn't end up signing as an undrafted free agent. So anyway, wanted to give some kind of measured thoughts that I've had, a couple of hours to let this news sink in and, done some coverage for it and looked at other targets in the portal for Texas. This is still a loss that hurts, but, given that Texas is going to prioritize bringing in experience in Terry's first year as the full-time head coach, I don't necessarily think that this is a reason to panic or anything like that. So, be patient, see what Terry's able to do in the portal. He just got the job 2.5 weeks ago. I think this is definitely no reason to panic. But anyway, there's a lot more portal stuff we got coming up for y'all for both football and basketball because even football's active in the portal right now, and they will be post-spring. So a lot of that content will be just around the corner. But for now, thank you for watching. Andrew Miller from Hook'emHeadlines.com. I think that's pretty much it. Welcome.